Okay, so when I hit the street and start talking about abortion on Main Street and start talking about the evils of abortion, bring it back to this video, friends. And no, I'm only doing what Stuart Altschuler said he wanted, making it as public as possible, getting it on the minds of everyone. When I display pictures of aborted children, murdered babies, and the whole community is up in arms because Pastor Bramwell is showing these horrible images, know that I'm doing it because Stuart said he wanted a conversation. Welcome to another reaction video, friends. I'm Reverend Tyrel Bramwell, the pastor of St. Mark Lutheran Church out here in Ferndale, California, and I'm coming to you from the church, from my study, because this video is about something going on in Ferndale. We have the emergence of an advocacy group that is supporting and advocating for the murder of babies. St. Joseph Hospital refused to abort a child, a murder of a mother's child. St. Joe Hospital is owned by Providence, which is a Catholic organization apparently, and it is has policies that are in keeping with Christian teaching. They would not murder a child. They wouldn't break the fifth commandment just because this mother was afraid and didn't want the child anymore, or whatever her motives were. The doctor, the medical professional that the leftists are always trying to tell us to trust, said, you're not at a life and death situation right now, and so let's fly you to a bigger hospital that can take care of you. And she refused that care. So now these people are saying, we demand for everyone to always allow us to kill our children if that's what we want to do. Everyone, even the Christians. And so Attorney General Rob Bonta of the state of California is suing the Catholic-owned organization, the hospital group, and is trying to force them to obey the state's laws, the tyranny of the state, rather than God's law. So we're going to get into that. You might say, well, Pastor, I thought you said in the last video that you could engage with these political issues, on these political issues from your private residence and as a private citizen, but you shouldn't do it or aren't doing it as the spokesman for the church, for St. Mark, and using the facilities and as the personnel of the church. Well, no, this is a religious issue, friends. This is not me just endorsing or denouncing a candidate. I'm dealing with these two would-be candidates who are talking about the church. They're talking about the religious organization. They're coming at us, and we're more than able to counter that and speak to that for the sake of our hearers, to teach good doctrine, not only for my sake, but for your sake, so that we can guard the sheep from the wolves, and we can help those others who are out there who are lost sheep. We can gather them up and bring them and unite them with ourselves and fight against the tyranny that is at large in our society today. So yeah, no, this is totally game. Don't worry about that. And we're going to contend with it right now. So I got it queued up here. We're going to have to do a lot of fast forwarding. It is a slow, monotonous, boring video, but it is worth our while, no matter where you live, to engage with this kind of content and see how we can engage with it. So pastors, take note. Lay people, to encourage your pastor, take note that we need to be engaging in the civil realm, especially because the civil realm is always trying to encroach itself upon the ecclesial realm and get into the state. So let's get into this.
Quick disclaimer on the record. My business, Francis Creek Digital, was a sponsor of Ryan's recent sports competition in Europe, just so you all know. So some quick background on our issues here tonight. This network formed in October this month in response to the California Attorney General's allegations against Providence St. Joseph Hospital in Eureka. The AG says that Providence broke multiple state laws due to its refusal to provide emergency abortion care to people experiencing obstetric emergencies. And with the only other hospital obstetrics unit in Humboldt County closing this month, that's Mad River in Arcata, these allegations are extremely alarming to us. We are a network of people demanding law-abiding, trustworthy hospital services in Humboldt County for emergencies and for reproductive health care. And we are seeking advocacy help from our elected leaders.
Okay, notice this. Friends, notice this is the way the narrative is going to spin. They're demanding law-abiding citizens, trustworthy citizens. Those are good things, right? To be law-abiding and trustworthy are good things. Well, the problem is we now have momentum in our civil society, civil meaning civic, not like civilized, but civic society in the kingdom of the world, right? That they're pushing for laws that go against God. that go against God's rule. We have authorities who are abrogating the Romans 13 commission, that they are rejecting the idea that they are ministers of God in the civil realm. Not in the ecclesial realm, not ministers as like a pastor would be a minister, but ministers who bear the sword, who use the law. And so now these people are using the law not to be a terror to the wrongdoer, but to be a terror to those who are good citizens, who are obeying the laws. So now we have to be careful. They have a turn of the narrative, a twist of the narrative here. They're making themselves seem like the good guys. And the Christians, they're the villains. They're breaking the law. Well, only because the laws have deviated from God's law. If the state was still making laws that were in keeping with the lawgiver, the creator of the world, the one who ordered and put in place all the laws that we can identify and those we can't, the one who is in charge, if they were still in keeping and in step with him, we would be the law-abiding citizens. But we are now entering into a territory, into an era where we are now becoming the outlaws. St. Joe and Providence and all the Catholic churches out there and all the Christians, maintain course, friends. Maintain course and stick with God rather than men. What does Acts 5:29 say? Take a look at that with me. And when they had brought them, they set them before the council, and the high priest questioned them, saying, "We strictly charge you not to teach in his name, this name, Jesus' name. Yet here you have filled Jerusalem with your teaching, and you intend to bring this man's blood upon us." But Peter and the apostles answered, "We must obey God rather than men. The God of our fathers raised Jesus, whom you killed by hanging him on a tree. Raised him from the grave, from the dead. God exalted him at his right hand as the leader and savior to give repentance to Israel and forgiveness of sins. And we are witnesses to these things, and so is the Holy Spirit, whom God has given to those who obey him." Christian, we are entering into a time where we are going to have to come to terms with this. Who will you obey? As for me and my house, we will obey the Lord. You should obey the Lord too. As a Christian pastor, I am encouraging you to reject these people and their false teaching and their false idea, the lie that they are the law-abiding citizens, that they are trustworthy. Truth, trust, this comes from God. They follow after their father, the devil, the father of lies. Law-abiding? No, they are breaking the law of God. Though it's on the books for man, that doesn't make it in keeping with God. And so we're going to stay the course. You are actually the law-abiding citizen. You are actually the trustworthy citizen. Just because it's no longer popular to maintain our course, and it seems as if they're law-abiding and they're trustworthy because they're going with the state. Well, the whole state has set itself against Christianity, against Christianity's God, the one true triune God. So we got to be clear about this, what we're dealing with, and the twisting, the manipulation in the narrative and the language. They're not doing things well. They are going against God. Let's continue here.
Stuart, would you like to start by introducing yourself and making a few opening
My
comments?
name is Stuart Altschuler. I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist. I also teach addiction studies at College of the Redwoods for the last 15 years. And as you said, I'm running for one of the two seats on the Ferndale City Council. I'm also the secretary for the Humboldt Democratic Central Committee, the Humboldt County Democratic Central Committee, and I've been on that for a number of years now. So many of us received a letter, if you're on Providence's mailing list, within the last couple of weeks. I got one. I really feel like that letter encompasses the entire issue. For the 17 years I've lived here, I've been saying often and trying to get conversation on the fact that what we have is a religious-based monopoly on healthcare here in Humboldt County. And I'm really glad that Banta is actually taking some legal action towards them.
Okay, so a religious-based monopoly. Well, Mad River, Ellie Titus just got done telling us, Mad River operates in Arcata. It's not a religious-based operation. that hospital is a clinic, whatever it is not religious based. In fact, that's where the woman went to abort her child. So that's true, not true that there's a religious based monopoly. The fact that the religious aspect of it is here at all, it really should prompt some gratitude that we have a hospital that has been operating here since the 20s and doing it out of Christian love for a rural population. The nuns started this hospital to serve this area. Nobody else is doing that. Mad River is closing down its operations, various operations, because it's not financially feasible. We see this. You can go and look at HumboldtMutualAid.org, their own website. They detail this, that the spokesman or the press for Mad River said, hey, we can't continue to operate our obstetrics because there's not enough births. The birth rate has gone down. The birthing rate has gone down. And so we have to close our doors. Why do you think that is? Well, Eureka has a Planned Parenthood. They're murdering babies left and right. And so the amount of births that are happening in the various hospitals across the county are going down. Praise be to God that the Christian hospital that has the quote unquote, according to Stuart Altschuler, religious monopoly on healthcare in Humboldt County, it's still operating its labor and delivery department. It's still giving healthcare to mothers who deliver children. It's not doing that to snuff the child. It's not going to execute children. Go to Planned Parenthood if you want that junk. Go to Mad River if you want that crap. But we should be thankful. Not thankful that Rob Bonta is suing the Catholic Church. What are they? This lawsuit, what is the worst that could happen? It would drive them out of our area. Then what, guys? I mean, I know you're brilliant. You're really thinking this stuff through. What would happen if the state sues the hospital that is a religious organization and tells them you either have to get on board with the state laws that are against God or leave, or else we're going to sue you into oblivion? They're going to leave. If they have any backbone, they're going to leave rather than capitulate to the state. If they care at all about God's word, they will maintain course. And be like, all right, fine. We don't need to serve Humboldt County. We don't need to be there. We don't need to operate there. We'll operate in states that allow us to be Christian and serve our neighbor. Sorry, guys, your state is pushing us out. Think, guys, think. You got this crazy convoluted system that if you demand and you get on board with suing these people, you can sue them into compliance. Well, that's not how it always works. Maybe you can force the weak and the squishy to do your will, but eventually you're going to run out the good. You're going to run out those who actually stand for something and who are here and have been here for 100 years out of love that stems from the cross of Christ, that brings Jesus to people, not only spiritually, but physically, in serving the human needs of both the mothers and the children in the womb. It's a good thing. It's a good thing, friends. So we got a little introduction to Stuart Altschuler, who is all about suing Christians and breaking a perceived religious monopoly on healthcare in rural Humboldt County. Yeah. I don't think I'll be voting for you, Guy.
As a member of the Humboldt County Democratic Central Committee, I've already planted the seed to have us discuss and work on a resolution backing Bonta's lawsuit and criticizing Providence on their policies.
Of course you have. This guy, for those of you out of the area who are watching this, Stuart loves to write resolutions. He's tried to have the anti-hate resolutions that he's brought forward passed against, basically against the church here in Ferndale, because it's our sign that he sees as hateful when we warn people against drag shows for children and all of this kind of stuff. His resolution, he's always the one to push these things. So of course he has done that. I'm not surprised. First comes the spoken declaration, then comes the teeth.
Thank you, Stuart. Ryan, would you like to go ahead?
Yes. Thank you very much, Ellie, Heidi, and Morgan for organizing this, and thank you everybody else for attending. The situation is quite unfortunate that we have to have these programs and groups, but I am very grateful that I live in a community that stands up for these things and puts in the work. I appreciate Stuart bringing up that letter. It does kind of summarize the unfortunate situation that we're in, relying on private healthcare in rural communities that is limited specifically by religious rules. Personally, I believe that healthcare should be like education, and taken care of, especially in these high at-risk communities that are far from bigger cities and larger populations. Um, I am happy to advocate in any opportunity possible for these agendas. They have a special place with me and my family, and I think it's really important to use any position of power, whether it's a volunteer or an advocate or a city council member, to find the resources that are available and advocate and just verify the support that is out there, bridging that gap between the constituents that I would be representing and anybody that has the power to make these decisions. I'm a graduate of a leadership academy that helped me learn some really useful skills when reaching out to politicians to get things passed, to get grants funded, and to hold accountability for people that aren't following the rules. And I think this is a prime example of how important that accountability really is. Unless somebody is willing to file these charges and back things up and gather citizens like we are here, the accountability just doesn't happen. So I'm ready to use that position to advocate for as much as I possibly can in a city council position.
So he wants people to follow the rules, just not religious rules, not God's rules. He said this on film. You can watch the other episodes where I've shown you my interaction with Ryan Farmer at the Pride Festival. He doesn't even want to be able to talk about sin. What is sin? Well, sin is not following the rules, not following God's rules. So again, this is why in episode 32 of Truth at All Cost, I properly define Ryan as an idiot. He is not a public man. He is a private one. He belongs to himself, not to others. He is not a skilled man. I mean, I don't know what kind of degree he has from this leadership academy. If this was a 2-week course, 3 Saturdays a month for a while, that kind of a thing. Or I don't know. I always thought leaders graduated from academies like West Point or college in general. College graduates, military graduates. These are kind of academies that I think produce leaders. Well, they used to, not anymore. They just produce transgender people apparently. But so he wants to seize power, grab power, advocate for power, use power however he can, and use it for those things that have a special place in his life and in his family, as he said. That's dangerous. You have these kind of politicians, these kind of people who want to be politicians in your town too. Whether it's here in California, if you're somewhere else, doesn't matter. This is what we're contending with, friends. So take note of this. This is what they would have us do. They have these leadership committees. They want to bridge the gap and they want to advocate for evil. That's Ryan Farmer.
Happy to answer any other questions. I'm definitely really interested in hearing Stuart's proposal, and kind of looking forward to potentially using Ferndale's resources to help advocate for the things that matter so much to me and the local communities around me.
But to start, obviously, these issues affect pregnant people primarily, but who else do you understand to be affected by these issues? And I'm actually going to group these two questions together. Who else do you understand to be affected by these issues, and what do you understand to be the economic consequences of these issues in Ferndale and the county? And whoever wants to take it first.
I'll start this one off. For me, simply put, the biggest impact, of course, is to women-bodied people that have a direct impact to their health and safety. Health and safety is priority over anything. And as a male-bodied,
health and safety is priority over anything, but only for women-bodied people outside of wombs, apparently. What about the health and safety of the child? What about the health and safety of the human being whose mother is turning on him or her and exterminating him or her? Health and safety is everything. It's the number one priority. It's the central thing. Ryan? For all people? Or just for those who think like you, who are in agreement with you, who are willing to murder their children? Women-bodied people.
Person, I think that it's really
important
to listen, to hear what's important, and advocate with every bit of power that I might have. As far as who's impacted, it's literally everyone. It's families, it's single folk, it's
Especially the families that are butchering their children. They're impacted.
everybody that not only lives here but visits here, that comes in as an economic driver. Without these safety nets in of bare basic necessities, how can we expect anything to grow and push our economy, push the families that are growing here to be the best they can be? And it really also hinders the families that have to make the choice to not include certain people in this area with the rest of them, because there's a lot of people that just can't risk being this far away from healthcare in general.
So he's talking about families not including people when they want to move here and they can't bring all their members of their family. But what about the families that are excluding the children in the womb? They don't see the disconnect here. They don't understand the disconnect because they don't see that child as a child. All they can think about it's money-based. I mean, it's all mammon. You cannot serve God and money. Friends, this whole abortion issue, think about it in terms of that. Look at where they go from the first question here. The candidates introduce themselves, and what's the first question? How does this affect the economy? That's what they care about? The economy? No. How does this affect those being slaughtered by their mothers and those pretending to be doctors at Planned Parenthood or Mad River? Praise be to God that Mad River closed down its obstetrics. That way, there's no longer a place for people to go and murder their children. At least one less place. But notice that, yeah, it's affecting people who have to come here, but they have to leave some members of their family out. Yeah, at least those people are still alive.
And I think accountability through these resources and the county and the state and where these funding should be, and a basic safety net of bare minimum access at the very minimum, which we're lacking to an incredible extent.
We'll note that abortion would not be bare minimum. That's over and above. That's something different. Bare minimum. St. Joe Hospital is not like a top of the line hospital. It is bare minimum. And those of us living out here know that. We know that we have to be flown out, or we have to go to the Bay Area. We have to go to Oregon, somewhere else. They're going to take you somewhere else if anything's really extremely going on with your body. So we understand that. And so the basics are being covered here. Okay. All these things, I bring this up, friends, I pause this here because all these things are excuses. These are all missing the point. All of it's distraction. Every last bit of it's distraction. If you want more than the basics, so Ryan's missing the point on that. We have the basics. If you want more than the basics, then yes, you do have to make a decision for yourself and live somewhere where, like a Stanford University or UCSF in the Bay Area. You have to live near those bigger hospitals with the more specialized medicine. If you want to live in a rural community, that comes with risking not being that close to hospitals. Absolutely. What's the big problem? Make that decision. You're big kids. We're all free to make that choice in America. What's with the trying to handcuff people and entities and organizations and force them to our will? See, this gets to the point. It's not all about economics. That's what they would like you to think. It's about idolatry. Everything in the world is a spiritual battle. Every conversation, any engagement here, it is spiritual. They want to be able to have all the freedoms they want, to have all the autonomy they want, to be their own gods. But they're missing out if they're doing that here in Humboldt, but they don't have access to this thing or that thing. Somebody better be forced to offer that for them. This is a self-seeking, selfish, old Adam, all about me perspective. So when you engage with this, with people like this on this conversation, note this. The Christian is about serving neighbor. It's about serving others, going without, sacrifice. It's about the cross. But for those on the other side of the conversation, like Mr. Farmer here and everybody else in this Zoom call, it is about self-service. What do I get? What they may say it's about their family and concerns about those who want to move here and can't or whatever. They may couch it in this compassionate language, but it is compassion milked from a system of selfishness. Gimme, gimme, gimme. What I want, what I want, what I want. rather than what is good for other, which is ultimately Jesus Christ on the cross for our sins, which is ultimately, to bring it back around, to follow the rules of God, to strive to follow. Do we do it perfectly? No, but to want to obey the rules. Talking about obeying rules, Mr. Farmer. God's rules. The rules that are outside the system, not man's rules that change and ebb and flow and fluctuate. No, but the concrete rules. To not sin, including murdering children.
Yeah.
Thank you, Stuart.
So I think it's clear that Ryan and I are on the same page with a lot of these policies. I think most of the people on this Zoom right now are here because we have the same heartache and passion for those going through things. When we're talking about who's being affected, we are talking about not just women's bodies, but the families involved, the sense of heart.
Are you talking about the babies involved in those families? The babies in those women's bodies? No.
And loss when things happen during a pregnancy. I think also that when we're talking about community, we're talking about, so you asked, how does this affect our local communities? So part of it is that if we're looking to attract more people to Humboldt County to move here and grow the economy, the lack of high grade medical services, convenient medical services in all areas, we know are lacking here and sometimes affects people's choices in whether to move here.
So we have a hard time getting people to move here. Let's kill off the population that is here. We already have people who have roots here, who live here, who are already here. Instead of multiplying the population in the natural order of creation by giving birth to the next generation, let's kill them. Let's make the hospitals be willing to kill them to attract people who want that kind of service. No, please don't bring your Moloch worshiping, Baal worshiping, Canaanite-esque type of people into Humboldt County. Please leave. We don't want those who are willing to sacrifice children to move here. I don't care if it helps the economy in the short term. It will hurt us in the long term. In fact, it has. This kind of darkness has hurt Humboldt County in the long term. The county is a dark place. It is a spiritually evil place because of this. So instead, how about we turn things around and we actually just encourage families to have children? Let's get rid of opportunities to murder them. Let's shut down Planned Parenthood. Let's appreciate and give thanks to God for Christian hospitals that want to help us increase the population. Increase the population with people who have roots here. People who will spend money here, not just for a time and not just for one lifetime, but will invest long term in this economy. We want to talk economy. We could talk economy. The best way to do that is to create a people who are invested here. And the best way to do that is to give birth. Have people who live here already give birth to the next generation of people. People who love this place, want to live in this place, rather than importing money in. Let's just let people have children. Encourage people to have, yes, actually advocate for children to have, or for families to have children. That would be a great economic policy.
Kind of similar to, I'm on the executive board for.
I lost you when you were talking about people moving here to grow the economy, but facing a lack of medical services.
Right. So I was using the example of being a part-time faculty member, associate faculty at CR, and being on the union's executive committee. We've been negotiating with the Board of Trustees for a year to get healthcare benefits for part-time faculty. And what we have found is there are people who won't come to CR to teach because part-timers don't have that benefit, and we've lost part-time faculty because they don't have that benefit. And it's just another example of what's lacking in our community. Above everything else is the issues for women, and the right to quality health care, pregnancy, prenatal care, postnatal care, abortion, if that's what's necessary or chosen. It will attract people or not attract people to our.
Necessary or chosen? Well, abortion, the murder of an innocent life, is never necessary. It's always chosen. And this is an interesting thing to point out, because what is abortion? It is the intentional, deliberate murder of a human being. It's not recognizing, an ectopic pregnancy is not going to go to term, but is going to kill the mother, and dealing with that in a way that is sadly, unfortunately, going to end with one of the two patients dying, but trying not to have that be the case. No, it is the intentional execution of a human being, murder of a human being. So there's no such thing as a necessary abortion. It's not necessary to murder someone. That is breaking the rules that Ryan Farmer cares so much about. Chosen. You have to get that in there, because that's what we're dealing with, the right to choose, pro-choice, right? But otherwise, or besides the point, actually, is, yeah, part-timers don't get benefits. That's never been the case. When you work part-time somewhere, you don't get the bennies. So, yeah.
Our community, and that's not just Ferndale, it's Humboldt County.
Thank you. Morgan, you want to take the next one?
Sure. Do you have any particularly relevant experience that applies to these issues? Please share. Experience on boards. Stuart just mentioned that, working in or with healthcare providers, political activism, etc. And Stuart, do you want to go first on this, since Brian went first?
My experience of activism has, I was in college from 68 to 72. So if you want to talk about activism, it's been part of my DNA, going back to the Vietnam protests, women's rights, gay rights, civil rights. And it's that advocacy that
all the things that are evil. This is that the image I created. It's hanging up there, over there. But the difference in the worldviews, God's truth versus the devil's lies, and you have all the contrary things, the parallel things there that are juxtaposed with one another. Things like the rainbow is about the covenant and the peace of God, and then that's what it means from Scripture. God will not destroy mankind and by flooding them again, and that kind of thing. And it goes with the command to go forward and multiply, and all of this. The devil's lie, the twisting of that is the pride flag that apes God's rainbow, wants to be God's rainbow. And it is all about barrenness, and it's all about doing what we want to do. It's this kind of stuff. It's being our own gods. It's wanting our own autonomy, and that not to be accountable to God and His rules. Back to Ryan. So Stuart's his credentials, his resume, is that he's been protesting good things, being an activist against that which is good. For it's in his DNA, he says, right? This gay man, he says, gay rights and women's rights and civil rights and all of this different stuff. Civil rights, yes, absolutely. We want all people to have those same rights, and that you can see here how they've in the narrative they've hijacked it, they've co-opted the racial inequalities from the 60s, and they've attached to it all the different things that feminism and all the the right to abort your baby, which is the feminist thing, and gay rights and all this stuff. He wasn't the kind of guy who would go fight in Vietnam, who would serve his neighbor, even against his own desire, but would go forward as an American with courage and defend his neighbor, That was the story. That was what we were told. Whether that's how the system actually was operating or not, he was the kind of guy who was like, no, I'm going to protest this. We got a lot of those here in Ferndale. We got a lot of these kind of guys, this era. You've heard me talk. You can go look in kind of getting to be the old dusty part of the channel, and you can see how we had a councilman the last go around, Stephen Avis, who came to the church here when they were protesting. He wanted to thank everyone for coming out and using their freedoms to express themselves. And this guy also is proud of speaking against the Vietnam War and all that kind of stuff, being a draft dodger and stuff like that. So not good. We want to be the kind of people who love God and love neighbor.
Still in my students who are studying to be addiction counselors, because they have to advocate for their clients until their clients can do that for themselves in recovery. But it's also about teaching my students to stand up for the field of addiction. And most of my students are in recovery, and many of them have had pregnancies while still using and getting into recovery. It's been a very relevant issue, and my encouragement leads to offering my students extra credit if they show me proof that they voted. And I've been doing that for 15 years, and I've been trying to get other faculty to do the same. In terms of advocacy, being on the Humboldt County Democratic Central Committee for a number of years now, attending state Democratic conventions, and I just believe that we all have a responsibility to the society we live in and the communities we live in to speak for those who can't speak for themselves, or to join with those who are speaking for themselves for issues we believe in.
I think for me, experience is something that, as a younger male, I'm 31 years old. I've lived my whole life.
No. Male-bodied person, Ryan. Male-bodied person.
Understanding what privilege it is to be a white male-bodied person in America.
Thank you.
And I think one of the most important parts of that is being able to listen. There's no way to learn anything or to be able to stand up for what's right if you're not willing to listen about what is right and wrong.
That's interesting, because I came to the Pride Festival to talk. I specifically was trying to dialogue with him, and he booed me. He told me to F off. This man does not know how to listen. He has never wanted to listen. I tried to dialogue with him for more than an hour when he came out and he hung a rainbow flag in front of me while I was trying to hand out literature. And he wouldn't even talk to me. He would not talk. And when I tried to talk, and I did end up talking, that's the only thing he didn't want me to do was talk to him. He didn't want me to talk. And then I read all of 1 John to him so that he would hear about the love of God. But as this man with such great privilege, as a white male-bodied person, the most important thing is he can use that privilege to listen, except for when he's listening to someone who doesn't agree with him, or he has made up his mind he doesn't agree with me. But I was there to have the conversation. What about that, Ryan? I'm a member of this community. I came to have a conversation, and you didn't want to listen. You wanted to make masturbation jokes. It doesn't seem like you used your privilege as a male-bodied person very well.
Especially for things that don't pertain to me.
Oh, yeah. Like being a Christian. You're not really a Christian, so maybe you should learn from a Christian as you're trying to learn from your allies and your friends over in the rainbow region of our community, demographic of our community.
In that direct sense. I think as far as working experience, as I mentioned, I went through a program in Southern California that was a leadership academy. And the focus there was how to create nonprofits and advocate for change. My nonprofit was a trash cleanup program where we hosted these events. We tied in with schools and kids and got people out into the mountains and created funds through different resources and grants to make it all happen. The program taught me a lot of how to reach out to politicians. We worked with the San Gabriel National Monument creation down there. where we had Obama come in and sign the paperwork that made a huge swath of land protected from future development. And it was a bigger picture than just how do we protect these mountains behind where we live at the time. It was how do we figure out what resources are available, who is within a distance to actually get a hold of versus who has the most power, and how should we spend the limited resources that we have and time that we have deciding not only who could make the change, but who do we have access to that could also advocate, and with a group of people advocating for these causes, how can that greater change get done? Which is just a lot of resource and time management when you start running into these dead ends of this would be great if it worked out, but these other politicians are accessible and they have like minds and the causes ring with them. So if you get people to care about things, then those people are also going to advocate for the same causes, and getting these groups together in coalitions just like this, how that group and roots movements can really build into a greater picture and an actual change that is tangible.
Are you learning, friends, how these people work? There's a great little insight from whatever little academy he went to, but how they partner with those of like minds. They're not looking for actual conversation and participation in our life together. They're looking for ways to push their agenda, ways to push their initiative, what they think is best. And so they're looking for those who are like-minded to get it done. Let this sink in. Think about this. Maybe even replay this and listen to this guy talk about the playbook. This is what they're doing and why they're doing it. They're trying to find people who are like-minded to push their goal. And it's honest. It's honest. That's what the church does to a certain degree, right? We want to, we are in communion with those who are like-minded. The difference is we go out into the world that hates us and we try to engage with them in a loving, considerate way. We try to have reasonable dialogue, and we don't boo them and insult them and make ad hominem jokes about them and attacks at them. No, we actually love them. We actually care about them. We're actually willing to be ridiculed, knowing they're not like-minded. We go out and we actually engage with people who are the opposite-minded than us for the sake of bringing them Jesus. And it works. It results. Now, you can't say that it's always going to convert someone into being a Christian, but they are always going to come in contact with Jesus when the church does this. And ultimately, that aspect of it is none of us are like-minded with God until the Spirit fills us. As natural man, we are fallen, and we are not even able to be of the same mind as God. But as Christians, those who receive the Holy Spirit, who are baptized into Christ's death and resurrection, we then have a mind like Christ's. We are filled with His Spirit, and there is true like-mindedness in that. We are of one accord, united, concord, right? This kind of thing. So there's similarities and there's differences. Ultimately, theirs is from a selfish man-made man's selfishness and foolishness, and it's just sad, really sad. My heart breaks for this man.
Could you share any specific ideas for what you would do as an individual if elected to advocate for these issues? And then what would you try to do to get your, in your case, city council to do as a group if you are elected? And either of you are welcome to jump in.
Go ahead, Stuart.
Okay, well, one thing I've already mentioned is the Humboldt County Democratic Central Committee, and getting them to start working on a resolution dealing with this issue and being as public with it as we possibly can. That's not a guarantee that it will happen, but I put that request forward in the last 24 hours. And I know that Ferndale City Council is not a big one on passing resolutions that support minorities and specific groups, but I think it would be important to take a resolution like that to the Ferndale City Council. If for nothing else, get a public discussion going and make sure that it becomes something that are on the minds of the entire community, even those that would not support it, those that do support it.
All right, friends, you've heard it. He wants this to be public as possible. He wants it to be on the minds of all Ferndalers. Okay, so when I hit the street and start talking about abortion on Main Street and start talking about the evils of abortion, bring it back to this video, friends. And no, I'm only doing what Stuart Altschuler said he wanted, making it as public as possible, getting it on the minds of everyone. When I display pictures of aborted children, murdered babies, and the whole community is up in arms because Pastor Bramwell is showing these horrible images, know that I'm doing it because Stuart said he wanted a conversation. Because I too want a public conversation on this, because the truth will survive. The truth will stand. The truth will win the day. Though the backlash may be severe, when we show just images of the evil, let alone advocate for the evil. These people are advocating for the evil that I am prepared and willing to show our city to do this very thing so that we all can have our consciences stricken, pricked, and we can put an end to this, at least as a culture in Ferndale, where Ferndale can be even an island in Humboldt County, maybe the only city, we're talking about passing resolutions, that'll pass a resolution that says, we stand against abortion. How about that? How about that? And that was he was talking about resolutions. He was talking about the council not passing twice over resolutions against the sign here at the church. Minority groups? Come on, Stuart. You got the Attorney General of California, the Governor of California, who stands up for your minority groups. The county office has DEI agents on staff. When will you guys no longer be the minority? The church, Christians, are the minority. Which is why the sign said recently, Lord God, make Ferndale Christian again. We are the minority, friend. But yes, I totally agree with Stuart Altschuler. Let's make this as public as possible. Let's have the conversation on YouTube, online, on Main Street, in the city council. And note that he's ready to go forward with another resolution. So Ferndale, get ready. Be ready to attend your city council and fight back with your words against this evil.
Personally, I feel that Ferndale is much more left-leaning than most people think we are. And I think that there would be a lot of support verbalized at city council meetings, or more dialogue getting going in Ferndale, Fortuna, hopefully other communities around the county.
Do you think so, Ferndale? Do you think Ferndale is more left-leaning than right? More progressive than conservative? I mean, we have a conservative strain in our community by necessity because we are conserving the Victorian village. But how does that work practically as it carries out into the actual lives of the people? Are the conservatives holding ground? I mean, the last resolution, Ferndale showed up on the conservative side. There was a pretty intense back and forth, but at the end of the day, it seems like Ferndale is actually still, when you get right down to it, more right-leaning. Is that true? I don't know. At the same time I say that, I can also say not many conservative Ferndalers, Christians, have been willing to engage in an ongoing way. In fact, some on the right in Ferndale blame me for all the pride festivals, which maybe is right, because I was the one who publicly spoke against it. But instead of joining me and the members of St. Mark and fighting back, they would rather just hate on us, put their head in the sand, their feet up on their lazy boy, and watch TV and complain about that pastor while they watch Fox News or something. It's ridiculous. Is that you, Ferndale? Don't be that. When will all these cowboys cowboy up and engage? I tend to think deep down in the heart of hearts of Ferndale that we are right-leaning. I don't know. And I say that not as one who's very well plugged in. I mean, I am sort of persona non grata. The locals don't want to be too associated with me on the left and the right because of the stuff we're doing here at church, because we stand with Christ and him alone, and our allegiance is to Christ and not to the city of Ferndale, not the idol of Ferndale, not to our school, not to the perception of our community, but to Christ. And so we don't make a lot of friends that way. So I don't know. I say we're right-leaning, and that's with not being very well plugged in. But Stuart here, he has the impression that we're a left-leaning community. I tend to think he's in a vacuum. I tend to think he's sort of has a confirmation bias because he's always around leftists. I hope we can show him he's wrong.
I think obviously we've seen that Stuart and I agree on a lot of these things, and the time spent on any city council position is going to be a balance of resources. I think getting two people in that are working on these same projects and supporting each other and spreading that workload out to actually see some true advocacy and representatives of our community looking and reaching out to the next steps of the other people in power or representatives that can make these votes and decisions to help support healthcare in general. Unfortunately, with privatized healthcare, any other business in America, if you have a department failing and not making money, then they would X that department. The problem here is with private healthcare, if these departments aren't making money, they decide to X them and nobody has safe access to all of their services, which is a fault bigger than any city council can change.
Yeah, maybe we should just, like I said, not attack them for their Christian position, but be appreciative of it and actually support them and see how we can best help our privatized health care system survive and sustain itself and be around to take care of us. But that wouldn't be the socialist way, would it? That wouldn't enable people to get whatever they want at the expense of others.
But what we can do is recognize that and learn what resources we have to advocate for that greater change that doesn't only affect Humboldt County, but tons of rural areas across the nation. I think California is in a different position because of the state government having different abilities to support things that they agree with the funding that the state has. And hopefully reaching out to the right people, we could see what options Humboldt County has to build up a better healthcare program in general. So all different types of programs are accessible by residents, not just in Ferndale, but across the North Coast. Ferndale or Humboldt County is also one of the larger areas in our surrounding area. So there's Trinity County and Del Norte and Mendocino that are in really similar situations, if not a little bit more rural and further away from this access. And I think that greater picture is the biggest problem. And it's kind of the elephant in the room, is that it's not that this program is broken, it's that the whole system was designed to work off the funding from the people that need these resources. And if there's not advocacy for changing that or developing a system that could help these rural communities, then not much is going to change. And I think these small grassroots groups can link up in the bigger picture and find the right people to help make change in that aspect as well.
Yeah,
Just socialism. That's, I mean, the bigger picture here, that whole thing, it's just socialism. Yeah, Stuart.
I agree with that. And I also think that this monopoly we call St. Joseph or Providence, I think in any community, the consciousness that service providers are there to serve the community, and that may mean that certain aspects of the services they provide are not profit, that are not creating a profit for them, and they need to learn how to know what's right and wrong in terms of continuing to provide certain services, even if it's not a moneymaker for them, while other services are creating their income.
That's a problem with Mad River. Your beef is with Mad River if this is the way you're looking at this. They're the ones closing down their obstetrics because there's not enough money coming from it. But even then, this is totally antithetical to the whole idea. the Christian church is here and is operating despite the loss. I mean, hospitals don't make money. They're not, yes, doctors make money, things like that, but these hospitals aren't here, and the service providers that they're talking about aren't here making gangbusters. The nurses, the doctors here in our rural area, they're not living here and doing this because it is, just this is where the money's at. Are they probably doing better than many other blue collar workers in our community? Sure, of course. But his beef is not with St. Joe, the hospital that's staying open, this hospital that keeps its labor and delivery department open. His beef is with the hospital that's closing it down because it can't afford to operate it. But then, if that's the problem, couched in the context of right and wrong, maybe if we weren't doing wrong with Planned Parenthood, killing off the children, then those parents could actually be going to both Mad River in Arcata and St. Joe in Eureka, and even Redwood Memorial in Fortuna, and those things could stay open. Those labor and delivery departments could stay open because we're not snuffing the kids in the womb. And then there'd be a reason for them to stay open, to give birth and deliver those children. So these guys are their own worst enemy in that they're thinking in terms of money and in terms of what we want, not in terms of consequences, of cause and effect. Having Planned Parenthood around is killing literally the kids, but also the business of medical care. And just making it a national thing, a federal thing, a socialized medicine kind of a thing is not going to solve that problem, because who is going to pay for that? Right now we have private entities who are bringing us the healthcare, and we still have the insurance system and all that kind of stuff. We're still engaged in it. But what, you guys want it all to be completely taxpayer funded, the whole thing? Just all of it. That is ludicrous. And it's just going to put a bigger burden on the economy. Now, none of that is really, all that's here nor there, really. But what I want to say is Stuart is conflating his beef. He's conflating his issue. I don't even know if he knows what the issue is, but he's saying right now he's talking against Mad River. They're the ones closing down. St. Joe isn't. So stop, humble yourself, and praise God that the Christian church operates according to Christian values and not in service to mammon, first and foremost. Yes, there needs to be capital to operate. That's true, even in a socialized system. You got to have funds. It's just, where are those funds coming from? Rather than coming from the person using the service, benefiting from the service, it's coming from everyone, no matter what.
It's about a consciousness that is about service and the well-being of society and a community. And I think that a Catholic entity like Providence does not think like that.
Doesn't think in service to community. Are you kidding me? Christians built this entire system in service to community. The reason the Catholic hospital is here in the first place is because the nuns wanted to serve this community. Are you nuts, Stuart? We don't think about service to neighbor? We're trying to save neighbor from being murdered. It's an ideological difference. Stuart's not seeing the unborn child as one to be served. Stuart's not seeing that the Catholic Church, the Christian church, is all about serving neighbor and sacrifice at the expense of sacrifice to self. Christ died, sacrificed himself so that others may live. This lady that started this whole problem, Dr. Nussluck or whatever her name is, the woman who had the abortion, she didn't want to serve self. She wasn't striving to keep her child alive at her own expense. Now, it was 15 weeks along, so mom needs to be alive, but that wasn't her intention or her motive. She was, from what we read in the press, interested in killing the child well before her life was even at risk. And that's what all of these people are doing too. This whole conversation by these advocates for murder, they're talking about the mothers as if the child is not part of the equation. And it's all an ideological difference. It's a distinction. And so they see themselves, know this, Christian, note this, Christian. that they see themselves as the loving, serving, compassionate, community-oriented people, not understanding that their actions are killing community, literally killing children. It is killing family. It is self-serving. It is serving the selfish mother, oftentimes. Yeah. And it is one that is built on right and wrong, and the abuse of right and wrong, I should say. That's a better way to say that. Their ideology is built on the twisting of right and wrong. And he's talking about money being a driving force. The Catholic Church isn't about making money in this sense, from how I gather. Now, I'm not Catholic. I'm not advocating or putting forth an apology for Roman Catholicism, but the church at large and many of our Catholics in the trenches here are not doing things for money. But guess who is? Planned Parenthood. The abortion industry is all about making money. Talk about nonprofits. The most well-to-do, highest grossing, financially successful nonprofit in the entire world ever is Planned Parenthood. We'll talk about right and wrong in service to community. These people are not trying to destroy community. Margaret Sanger wanted to eliminate entire communities of minority groups. The irony. It's upside down and backwards, just like we read in Isaiah. Take a look at that with me. Let's take a look at Isaiah. What do we read? Isaiah 5:20-21. Woe to those who call evil good and good evil, who put darkness for light and light for darkness, who put bitter for sweet and sweet for bitter. Woe to those who are wise in their own eyes and shrewd in their own sight. And we see this again, this concept in Romans 1:18-23. For the wrath of God is revealed from heaven against all ungodliness and unrighteousness of men, who by their unrighteousness suppress the truth. In their sinful thought process, they are suppressing truth. For what can be known about God is plain to them, because God has shown it to them. For his invisible attributes, namely his eternal power and divine nature, have been clearly perceived ever since the creation of the world in the things that have been made. So they are without excuse. For although they knew God, they did not honor him as God or give thanks to him, but they became futile in their thinking, and their foolish hearts were darkened. Claiming to be wise, they became fools and exchanged the glory of the immortal God for images resembling mortal man and birds and animals and creeping things. So we have a problem with a sin-filled, unrepentant, sin-filled brain, mind, soul that cannot rightly think through these things. This is why we see this. This is why there is such a theological difference between the left and the right. This is why we're no longer just dealing with politics. We are dealing with theology, worldviews, debased minds, and transformed minds. Let's see what else we have to hear here.
And I think they need to be taught how to do that. And I think that's true all over the country.
Who's going to teach us, Stuart? Who's going to teach the church how to serve neighbor? Christ has taught the church that. Christ continues to teach the church that. But I have a feeling you're thinking the state needs to teach us. That's very close to authoritarianism, totalitarianism. That is very close to the type of despotism we see with Hitler, isn't it? Teaching people against their will what is right and what is wrong. Friend, you're in a really bad spot, man. Take a look at Isaiah. I know you're Jewish, so I mean, if you're actually like religiously Jewish, take a look at Isaiah.
And I would love to see Ryan and I both win those 2 seats. I think it would totally change the tenor of how we function here in Ferndale. But it is unfortunate that people avoid things like this.
I agree with him. If we have 4 city councilmen who are all left-leaning, we will be in a bad spot. So Ferndale, take note of that. Also, Philip Osler and Leonard Lund, the other 2 city councilmen who didn't show up to this, everyone knows where they stand on things too. People know them just like they know Stuart. The one who's kind of the guy that no one really knows much about is the guy who's only lived in town for what he said, 4 years, just been 4 years, and just interacts with leftists, and then except for when he wants to heckle the Christians. So Ryan might be the only one that really people need to know too much about before they make a decision. But I think it's pretty clear where everyone's at on these issues. We don't have to act like a town of 1,300 people. We don't have to act like we're even a town of 30,000 where, we wonder where they're at on these things.
Thank you. Last question that we, the moderators, prepared, and then we'll see if the audience would like to ask any questions. This is a lofty one, and I'm not expecting you to spend too much time on it, but we're heading into a very, very close election nationally in a couple of weeks. The presidential election could very well go either way. Congressional elections are very close. Do you have any take on where our local issues might be headed depending on the outcome of the national elections and the political climate after Election Day?
I think that answer is going to differ on an incredible level depending on who you ask, of course.
Asking you.
I work in the forest industry, and I talk to a lot of loggers, and we talk about the prices of timber and how that affects our communities, because people might not be using this resource if it's not having a relation to its value. And with that, there's a little bit of a disconnect from what the general public might think and what actually happens depending on what party might be in power in the presidency. So I don't think we can exactly know what to predict, but I know this is one of the many boxes left unchecked of why people should move their families to Humboldt County, and family members and residents, why they should stay here. So without having a clear view into the future, which I wish I could, I think it's really going to be dependent on what somebody's priorities are. And if their priorities are access to safe and comfortable healthcare, then that's not a win for Humboldt County.
And by safe and comfortable healthcare, he means, so that we're clear, the ability to murder your child. And if that is the upside to living in Humboldt County, that's a win. That if you move here, you can't just off your kid. Praise be to God. We got to keep in mind there is still Planned Parenthood, so that's not totally true. But at the hospital, you cannot just off your kid. Good. If that's what you want from your hospital, stay away. Here, we value family and community. We want to add more locals to our community. We want to raise up our children to stay here and have the same values as their grandparents. We want to conserve not just our Victorian architecture, but even the civility of a Victorian age. We want to have a Christian culture here. At least I do.
I'm not really sure how to answer that question, because I think what's going on nationally, it's amazing to me that it's going on. It's amazing to me that the race is close. It's amazing to me that, to me, it's a reflection of our national education system that nearly 48% of the people believe lies the way they do and stuff, and are so easily convinced of things that just a little bit of research would give them more basic truths about things. So I go for days at a time not watching the news, just because my heart needs a break from it once in a while. So I think if Trump wins, we're in for a bigger mess than we were the first time he was in office. I am feeling confident that Kamala's going to pull through on this, but if she doesn't have the Senate with her, it's going to be more work, I'm less concerned about us taking back the House. I think that's going to happen. So it really is about the Senate and a Democratic president and vice president. How that impacts us here, like I said, people don't realize that there are more Democrats in Humboldt County than there are Republicans. There are more independents in Humboldt County than there are Republicans. And
That might be, if that's true, that might be because when Republicans speak up, they get pool balls thrown through their living room windows. They get their cars keyed. They, the Republican office gets its, bricks thrown through its window all the time. I mean, literally, you drive in Eureka, and you look at the Republican office, you'd think they're in inner city Chicago or something. They got metal doors to keep people from vandalizing. It might be that the lefties have caused the conservative Republican sort of Ferndaler or Humboldt Countyan to leave. So yeah, there might be truth to that, what Stuart's saying. Maybe, I don't know. But if it is, it's because of the hostility shown toward the Republicans.
yet some of those voices, like Bramwell, are just much louder than a lot of other voices. So we need to get people who are willing to come together and speak out and advocate. But it's hard to really answer that question.
Yeah, understandably. I'll say as a network, we haven't done a ton of long-term planning. We're kind of flying by the seat of our pants, but I'm personally hoping for a Kamala victory, because I think a Trump victory would have dire consequences for everyone I love. But if Kamala Harris wins, we will still have a lot of work to do here in Humboldt County, and we will need to keep the pressure on and keep our foot on the gas. And that's certainly my intention, and I think speak for a lot of us in this network. Thank you so much. That's all. Those are all the questions we had prepared. Audience wise, I think this is an intimate enough group that folks could just turn on their cameras and ask if they want to throw a question out there, or raise your hand or put it in the chat. So what questions are out there from audience members?
I just have a comment. Hi, my name's Caroline Titus. I am Ellie's mother, and in full disclosure, I owned the Ferndale enterprise for more than 25 years and covered Stuart Altschuler quite a bit in the past on issues. And so I've been around Ferndale for about 32 years and feel like I know the community very intimately. And I would just encourage this network to continue the pressure on the economic front. And I know that the Chamber of Commerce did that with the proposed anti-hate resolution that did not pass in Ferndale, but we did get Senator Mike McGuire here and met with him behind closed doors with the Ferndale City Council and other community leaders, trying to explain to them from an economic standpoint, some things that go on in Ferndale are hurting business. Granted, that did not get the right-leaning council to consider passing the resolution, but the economic issue of this, I know firsthand. Ellie, if she is lucky enough to have another pregnancy, has already said that she will have to move.
Let me pause right there and just mention that they brought in the most powerful state official. What Mike McGuire is like? I don't remember what they call him. This is a big swinger, right? And they bring him in. He happens to be our guy in this part of the country, and they want to use him to pressure the local city council to pass an anti-hate resolution because of St. Mark's sign and my outspokenness on God's word and truth. It didn't work. Praise be to God, it didn't work. Because we do have conservative-ish people. I don't know how conservative they are, but they are conservative enough to know that squashing free speech is not the way to do things. This, friends, this pressure that Caroline Titus is talking about on the economic front, this is an ancient tactic, ancient strategy to silence the church. Come with me now. Let's take a look at Ephesians. Let's go to Ephesians real quick. If I say Ephesians, we're in the book of Acts, chapter 19, in Ephesus, but we're in the book of Acts, reading about Ephesus. About that time, there arose no little disturbance concerning the way, that is Christianity. For a man named Demetrius, a silversmith who made silver shrines to Artemis, brought no little business to the craftsmen. So he brought a lot of business to the craftsmen. These he gathered together with the workmen in similar trades and said, "Men, you know that from this business we have our wealth." The economic pressure that Caroline Titus is talking about. And you see and hear that not only in Ephesus, but in almost all of Asia, this Paul has persuaded and turned away a great many people, saying that gods made with hands are not gods. And there is danger not only that this trade of ours may come into disrepute, but also that the temple of the great goddess Artemis may be counted as nothing, and that she may even be deposed from her magnificence, she whom all Asia and the world worship. When they heard this, they were enraged and were crying out, "Great is Artemis of the Ephesians." So the city was filled with the confusion, and they rushed together into the theater, dragging with them Gaius and Aristarchus, Macedonians who were Paul's companions in travel. But when Paul wished to go in among the crowd, the disciples would not let him, and even some of the Asiarchs, who were friends of his, sent to him and were urging him not to venture into the theater. Now, some cried out one thing, some another, for the assembly was in confusion, and most of them did not know why they had come together. kind of like these guys. Some of the crowd prompted Alexander, whom the Jews had put forward, and Alexander, motioning with his hand, wanted to make a defense to the crowd. But when they recognized that he was a Jew, for about 2 hours, they all cried out with one voice, "Great is Artemis of the Ephesians." And when the town clerk had quieted the crowd, he said, "Men of Ephesus, who is there who does not know that the city of the Ephesians is temple keeper of the great Artemis, and of the sacred stone that fell from the sky? Seeing then that these things cannot be denied, you ought to be quiet and do nothing rash. For you have brought these men here who are neither sacrilegious nor blasphemers of our goddess. If therefore Demetrius and the craftsmen with him have a complaint against anyone, the courts are open, and there are proconsuls. Let them bring charges against one another. But if you seek anything further, it shall be settled in the regular assembly. For we really are in danger of being charged with rioting today, since there is no cause that we can give to justify this commotion." And when he had said these things, he dismissed the assembly. Ancient strategy, friends. Use the threat of the economy, hitting the pocketbook, to villainize the Christians, to show that they are ruining our society. They are causing us to lose money. Because that's how people are motivated, isn't it? When they don't have money. And so this is how we tug on the heartstrings, says Caroline Titus. Keep up the pressure. We know the issue is all about abortion. We know it's all about Artemis. It's all about the goddess of fertility and all this kind of stuff. But really, we want to present ourselves from an economic standpoint, because that's the wisdom of the day. That's going to get through to people. Now, guys, this is a spiritual war. They want to abort their babies. They want to murder babies. They want people to be able to murder babies. They want a community that hates those who hate abortion and evil. And so they want an anti-hate resolution. But they hate. They hate Christians. They hate me. They hate you. They hate us. And they want to silence us. And they're going to use the economy as a cover to do just that.
Move out of the area temporarily in order to make sure she has a safe pregnancy, since she has some issues with her first one. I have another daughter who has bought a house here recently. She is 3 months pregnant. She is splitting her time right now between Sonoma County and here, where she works in Sonoma County. And she is right now trying to decide whether to stay in Sonoma County in order to have her baby, or move to Ferndale and take the chance that if there are complications, she does not have health care. So I think from an economic issue, I think this network should talk to all the Chamber of Commerces in Humboldt County. I think they should try and talk to Rotary groups, believe it or not. I think you should address the city councils, because as all of you know, the disconnect between the word abortion and women's health care and what is happening here at St. Joe's, all of you know that you can argue it over and over and over again online and it gets nowhere. And I think that putting a face to it like you all have and addressing our community leaders, Ellie addressed the Ferndale Chamber of Commerce and explained what this issue is from an economic standpoint. People are not going to live here or move here if they cannot get women's health care,
Abortion,
with their pregnancies. So I would.
And I totally agree. Just like I agree with Stuart about making this as public as possible, we need to put a face to this issue. I agree. So I don't think that these guys should be going to do these things. I think it's going to make more work for the Christian. But hey, that's the duty. That's the responsibility. And as we go to the city council and as we go to chamber of commerces and we go to the rotaries and things and we engage with them as they're going to, so I hope, Christian, you're taking note of this and you're planning on engaging as well, that we bring images. Let us show them the face of the babies that are butchered in their mother's wombs. Let's show them the face of their economic god. Let's show them what they are trading for their economy, for their money, to get the rich people from the Bay Area to move here and retire here and bring their money to Ferndale. Let's show them what the expense is. The horrific, bloody, murdered body of the babies. I think Caroline's right. We need to see a face.
Just encourage the group to continue to, and there's going to be, as you know, just like the candidates, a lot of groups are not going to take you up on your offer. But I think that's where the key is, to just try and consistently address these organizations on the economic impact of this.
I think what Paul wrote in the thing about the anti-hate resolution, I know that if Ryan or I get one of the seats, I've already talked with Jennifer about resubmitting that for a vote at the beginning. Because we would get 3-2, although she's told me that she's not in favor of the long version of the resolution that Skip presented, but at least the anti-hate statement we could get through to get started. And I think in terms of the county supervisors, it's indicative of the fact that the two people you invited representing the Eel River Valley are the two conservatives on the supervisors, but I also know that the others on the Board of Supervisors would totally support what we're talking about right now. So another issue would be running someone against Rex Bone and Michelle, you know, and doing what we can to make sure that we can reinforce the left-leaning values of the Board of Supervisors.
Not only reinforcing that, but reminding the ones that don't agree with us that maybe those decisions don't align with the constituents that they represent. And they need to continue to keep in mind that as a public service position, it's not just our job to vote on however we feel, but how the people that we represent feel. And the more remind.
And if they don't feel the same way, we better force them to feel the right way, the left way, not the right leaning way, the left way. If we got to solve this conservative problem in the county supervisor thing and just make sure they know they're voting wrong.
And communication that we all have together, the more hopeful I am for anybody to listen and do their best to understand these concerns, especially regarding health to everyone. But money talks, unfortunately, and the economic drivers behind these things are something that they can understand.
Well said, Ryan. I appreciate that.
Thank you. And I think, you know, from my vantage point in Ferndale, the anti-hate resolution, which was spurred by essentially one very loud person in Ferndale who is a gay basher. It's about solid.
I think that would be me. I think she's talking about me. Isn't that interesting? This abortion conversation has had a lot to do with the anti-hate resolution and with the Christian church standing against it. Well, because the hospital is a Christian organization. And so obviously these things are all linked in their minds. They are linked too in their own worldview, right? I mean, the LGBTQ stuff, all of those issues are directly connected to feminism and abortion rights and all that kind of stuff. And it's just a godlessness. We are dealing with humanists versus Christians. That's really the situation here. And no, I'm not a gay basher, but if you are gay, you should repent of that sin so that you don't die. I actually love you and want you to live forever with Christ.
Solidarity. Our issues affect LGBTQ plus people just as much as those outside that community. For from my point of view, it's all intertwined, and seeing a council more open to reflecting the community's needs on these issues would be a wonderful thing.
They are all intertwined, just as Francis Schaeffer said. Christians have been slow to get this. This is why the left has won so many battles in the culture war. We see all these issues as separate, but they're not. They're all one big battle. It's the same thing. It is humanism versus Christianity. And so Ellie Titus is right in that regard. We too, Christian, you, Christian, should see these things as interrelated. They are part of the same fight. Absolutely. Let's leave it right there. I think we're about done. This has gone on way too long. This has been the reaction video of Pastor Bramwell, right? Me, of St. Mark Lutheran Church, reacting to the HumboldtMutualAid.org Humboldt Abortion Access Advocates, their forum for Ferndale and Fortuna candidates for 2024. We've learned a lot about Stuart Altschuler and Ryan Farmer, stuff we probably already knew, but we've also seen how these things work locally. So if you've been watching from outside of the Ferndale area, I hope you've learned this kind of stuff is going on in your community too. So engage friends and understand the insidiousness of their strategies, and understand that the distractions, the things they bring up, aren't the real deal. This is a spiritual battle. So engage, equip, and fight with that armor of God on, using the word of God to proclaim Christ crucified to these people always and forever. That is the opportunity, that we would be able to be dragged before kings and courts and proclaim Jesus to them. We'll see you in the next video.